Thousands have lost their jobs in the coal industry during the past 18 months, victims of industrial reform and aggressive economics. Now workers are back in the trenches preparing for another hit.
We have been warned to expect a further 1,000 jobs to be lost.
BHP has reportedly accepted a 5% cut in hard coking coal per tonne during talks with Japanese steel mills. Analysts say the big Australians' influence on the market will have a massive effect, wounding the smaller players in the coal industry.
For other smaller marginal coal producers, underground operations, they won't be able to survive, or at least it will make it very difficult for them to survive.
An oversupply of coal on the world market has been pushing prices down. Last year, BHP accepted an 18% price cut for hard coking coal, resulting in wide job losses.
Whilst there's been some improvement in economic activity, there's also been a number of new coal mines coming on stream.
Figures from the Joint Coal Board showed that between 1996 and 1998, 2,656 workers in the black coal industry were sacked, while output per employee rose dramatically.
The problem is that share of the world market, particularly the East Asian market, hasn't been translated into high rates of profitability for the industry or more jobs for Australian miners.
BHP will announce details of the deal later this week. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
He was barely recognisable at work today, minus his famous locks, but there's one thing Troy Fletcher hasn't been prepared to change. When told he was free to talk to other teams during the off-season, the local boy only ever considered one option.
All my friends and family are here, and as I said, the team's here and the support and the crowd and everything. I couldn't see myself playing elsewhere.
With a point to prove, Fletcher trained hard during the break and has been named in the team to play the Northern Eagles this weekend. The 26-year-old is glad to be back, even though he'll only play if someone is injured.
It's sort of a catch-22. You don't really want to play because the only reason you're playing is if someone gets injured, and you don't really want anyone to get injured, but you also want to play.
Meanwhile, Fletcher's teammates went deep into enemy territory today to take their first real look at Graham Park, now North Power Stadium. Everyone was impressed, even ex-Bear David Fairley.
It's great that the Central Coast has got this sort of facility here for people to come and support rugby league.
The dead flat surface should make for an interesting kicking game, while the clash itself is being billed as a local derby.
There is some history with both the North Sydney team and the Manly team. They've now combined, and we've had rivalries with both teams over the years. Now that they're combined, it'll be add more spice to the event on Sunday.
Josh Blair is no stranger to Ironman contests, having completed the Prestige Series with 3rd, 4th and 2nd places in the past. And with such consistent results, it's no wonder that this time around a 22-year-old is aiming for the title.
I think it's the right time too. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I've worked all my training towards winning the series, so it'll be nice to get it this year, and it'd cap off a long winter's training.
But it's not going to be easy, with the reigning champ Kai Hurst 6 points ahead. However, Blair has set his sights firmly on the title and is confident he can triumph over the 18-year-old.
Not let him dominate all the water legs, and I think just basically work him hard on the legs that he doesn't want to.
But as well as looking forward, Blair is all too aware that sometimes you need to look at who's behind you. A lesson he learned last round when he came in 10th place.
I'm sure Kai's looking over his shoulder as well, as I've got to do with Stephen and the other competitors, but I think if I go out there and concentrate on my own race, things will fall into place.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
Few could forget this strike the last time the Wolves played Newcastle. And Saso Petrovski is back to play the Breakers this weekend. The striker will play after missing last weekend with a badly gashed leg, and he hopes to add to his tally of 9 goals for the season.
Yeah, it's been really enjoyable. I think that's what's really helped me perform on the weekend. Just knowing that you go out there and the coach says just enjoy yourself, fellas, so we go out there and enjoy ourselves. And
Petrovski will join Socceroo Scott Chipperfield and Mick Horsley to face a weakened Breakers team. Andy Harper enjoyed his best scoring night of the season against South Melbourne on Wednesday, and also one of his worst, with a 4th yellow card earning him a 1-week suspension.
Yeah, Harps has been having a terrific season, there's no two ways about that. Holds the ball up well for us. Chris Tanchevsky's been jumping out of his skin for a chance and he'll get it this week.
Vasco Tresepsky is also back in the run-on side for the match, with Mark Wilson or Travis Dodd to drop back to the bench. They came by board and boat, but there was only one way back. Setting off from Coal Point, swimmers had 3.8 kilometres of Lake Macquarie to look forward to. Taking off in 2 waves, it didn't take long for the field to thin out, with Novocastrian Swim Club member Michael Legg kicking away from the rest. Not far back, the first woman, Sally Atkins. She knows this trek all too well, the defending champion, right on song midway through the race. 16-year-old Legg kicked away up front to fly home first. Legg home in a time of 42 minutes and 3 seconds, while Atkins cruised home for her successive title, bettering her previous winning swim by almost 2 minutes. The largest open youth sailing regatta began not far away at Torralba Sailing Club, with around 200 competitors aged from 8 to 18 years of age hitting the waters. The championship concludes tomorrow. From sails to soccer, and the battle for the Soccer Federation's President's Cup began last night. Last year's NBN Soccer League Grand Final winners Hamilton took on Edgeworth and looked sharp. But you could tell it was early days of the new season. In the end, a 1-1 draw seemed a fitting result. With the disappointing Bears experience behind him, Adam Muir is back looking bigger and better than ever as an Eagle, and he can't wait for tomorrow night.
The 2 years I had at North Sydney were very disappointing with injury, and now it's the best I've felt, and I'm really enjoying training, and the camaraderie between the team is excellent.
He'll line up with Steve Menzies to form a formidable back row combination to play his old club that has bulked up in the forwards as well. But it's not in the pack that Muir thinks the Eagles have an advantage tomorrow night.
I think it's the best time to play in Newcastle. They've got Matty, Joey and Gidsy haven't played a game yet, so their time could be like a touch-off sort of thing, and we've had a couple of trial matches and we've performed quite well.
And another one-time night, Brett Grogan was with the Eagles during their final session today, giving the strongest indication yet that he'll take some part in the game tomorrow night. The squad won't be announced until an hour before kick-off.
Staff from Newcastle's Mater Hospital arrived in convoy at the Rutherford picket line today, bringing with them support and cash for the workers sacked 3 weeks ago. The Mater staff raised $3,000 collected at last week's anti-privatisation rally.
People of Newcastle are suffering through what has been done to their Mater Hospital. The National Textile Workers up here, it's awful and it's a shame, and we just realise that they need our help as much as we've needed their help too, so we wanted to show our support and our solidarity.
Miners from the Stratford Open Cut at Gloucester also chipped in with $2,000, taking total donations from the community to over $30,000.
It's really lifted the spirit of the people here today to see that the entire community from different aspects of society are behind them.
The federal government is expected to throw a lifeline to the workers during Tuesday's cabinet meeting.
The taxpayer is not going to pick up all of the liabilities of company directors. They have to look after their responsibilities, but in the extreme cases, as this one is, out of sympathy for the employees who did nothing wrong, I am sure that the government will find a way of helping those employees.
Samba Man has always been one of the Central Coast's best young surfers, along with the likes of Adrian Buchan. But fortune hasn't favoured Man in the past, with the 20-year-old taking a while to make his mark on the world stage. Now his luck has changed. Having never won as a junior before, the young surfer has taken 2 events in only 1 week. Meanwhile, the 9th round of the Longboard Legends Tour wrapped up at Avoca today, with Newcastle board rider Mark Hancock jumping up from 3rd to 1st on the points ladder after beating Ian Bell in the final. There were no big waves to be seen, but that didn't stop the finalists from demonstrating just why they're in the professional division. There's only 1 round to go before the finals in Sydney, where surfers will be competing for $8,000 in prize money. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Today's training session was much like last night's game for Newcastle. No matter how hard they tried, the Knights just couldn't get past the Eagles.
Under normal circumstances, against probably less tenacious defence, we would have scored, but they were very, very determined not to let us in.
And it wasn't just in defence the Eagles soared. In attack, the first 2 tries came from a Peter Sharp plan to expose inexperienced wingers and new fullback Adam McDougall that worked to a T.
You can sort of expose people from time to time if they're not used to playing there week in, week out, which he's obviously not. But when he carries the footy, mate, he is a handful. Don't worry about that.
In fact, it was McDougall's running game that almost got Newcastle home. But like so many times before in the match, Newcastle couldn't capitalise.
We had our chances and we were at their line a few times and we just couldn't get over, and I thought their defence was very good.
Mentally we were a little sluggish. We'd half-pipe complete a decent set. We think something was building. We take a poor option. The heads would hang, the body language was down.
Ryan was happy with 2 of his new recruits in Dave Fairley and Ben Kennedy.
Ben Kennedy, I thought, was outstanding. I thought Ben Kennedy was our best player.
On the injury front, try scorer Tamana Tahu has an ankle problem, Matt Parsons a slight knee injury, while Adam McDougall has a hamstring strain. Little has stood in the way of teenager Kai Hurst in the One Summer Series, and at Manly he won both the final round heats to wrap up successive titles, the first to do so since Trevor Hendy. The Tugun-based clubby won 7 of the 10 races on offer to cruise to an overall win. The race for minor placings was the real battle. Josh Blair finished 5th in the final race to place him 3rd overall on countback behind Phil Clayton. And a rising star was unearthed during the series in Central Coast teenager Daniel Shade. The 16-year-old already has a devoted, if small, fan club, and it's destined to only get bigger after the Avoca Beach boy finished 12th overall, ahead of former winner Guy Andrews. To sailing, and triple world champion Chris Nicholson is a step closer to his dream of representing at the Olympics after his selection was challenged unsuccessfully by rival 49er skipper Adam Beashall. The Australian Yachting Federation dismissed Beashall's appeal at the weekend. However, it's thought the case may now be taken to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Opposition leader Kim Beazley was piped onto the Rutherford picket line today and given the warmest of welcomes.
The first priority should be to keep this open. That ought to be the first priority.
Mr Beazley promised to introduce tough new laws to protect 100% of workers' entitlements. The opposition leader chipped in $50 from his own wallet to the picket fund, leaving workers hopeful and determined.
I really do hope he does become the next Prime Minister, which he will, and I've got a lot of faith in him.
100% or nothing, and until we get the 100%, we're going to stay here, and we're going to stay here till we get it.
Oh yeah, I'm here for the finish, yeah. We're all here for the finish.
With Prime Minister Howard's approval rating taking a tumble this week, it seems Labor and Mr Beazley are winning plenty of support among Hunter workers. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Few will forget the emotional farewells in September last year when BHP employees said goodbye to their jobs as well as their workmates. Among them was Michael Beacons, his light-hearted antics masking the shock of the news.
Well, the day I found out was actually my wedding anniversary, so that's why I'll always remember that day, and there was an announcement on the radio, and I thought, holy crikey, what do I do now?
At first it was, quite shocking news, I suppose, and you think of those things as, what will we do and what will happen to us.
Michael and his wife Elizabeth are two of the 1,000 former BHP workers taking part in a University of Newcastle health study designed to shed light on the impact of redundancy.
We'd like to get a checklist going for GPs to use, which lists the sort of things that happen to people when they become unemployed. The GP might like to look down that and think of which ones might apply to their particular patient.
We go into the home and we interview the couple, if there's a couple. I do their blood pressure, I weigh them, do their height and do a cholesterol level, and then we go through a fairly detailed survey together.
Previous overseas studies show that when workers are made redundant, their blood pressure, cholesterol and weight all rise. It's hoped this research will shed more light on these findings, which will be released in April. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
The 6 surgeons took the drastic step of resigning in a bid to draw attention to a 45% cut to general surgery, effective from March 13. Now local GPs have come out in support of the specialist cause.
I think they've done the right thing. I think they've said enough is enough. We can't do our jobs. There's no point being here.
Dr Arne Sprogger says budgetary constraints are being echoed across the region and the healthcare crisis is only deepening.
We are chronically underfunded, and that's been a deliberate thing for this region. So what we're watching is the price that's paid for that.
Negotiations between the specialists and the Hunter Area Health Service are continuing. Meanwhile, those manning the Mater Hospital picket line have backed the surgeons' move.
We sympathise with those doctors who do a great job. In fact, we're getting support from all the nursing staff at the Mater also.
The picketers, who have been on site for 9 days now, say they are in for the long haul. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. Thieves hit the surf club on Monday night, stealing a quad bike, rescue board, flags and signs, worth around $11,000 in total. A hacksaw was used to cut through a padlock, the thieves getting away on the motorcycle down the beach. Now lifeguards fear lives could be put at risk.
The quad's a very good rescue access to this club. And at the moment, people at that end are getting in trouble or in danger of losing their lives because we can't access them quick enough.
The club has been crushed further by the poor response from the police.
We made an initial phone call to the police and they got back to us and give us another number to call because they don't do all that sort of stuff, and we haven't had no response back from them since.
Meanwhile, the soon-to-be-open Go-Karts Go and the nearby Super Putt-Putt Golf in Broadmeadow were broken into at around 9 o'clock this morning. The bandit failed to open a ground safe in the Go-Kart Go office and moved on to the Putt-Putt Golf Centre. It was here he was spotted by employees from both businesses who gave chase.
He's seen us and he's bolted down the back fence, so we've taken off after him, jumped the fence after him, but he's managed to jump on his push bike, started waving a knife around and taken off on his push bike.
He's described as being 185 centimetres tall, in his late teens to mid-20s with brown hair. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It's this fertile farming land near Muswellbrook that Coal and Allied wants to convert into one of the state's biggest coal mines, confident of generating 10 million tonnes a year, along with around 1,000 jobs. Today, a stamp of approval from the state government.
There certainly is a need for jobs, and the extra 1,100 direct and indirect jobs from this mine are important for that community.
The planning approval for the $310 million mine comes with a swag of strict conditions. They include the appointment of a community management committee to, among other things, monitor dust emissions and pollutants, determine the appropriate blasting times and check water quality of the nearby Sandy Creek. So far, the approval process has taken 8 years, and Coal and Allied still has some bureaucratic hoops to jump through.
There are a number of other approvals yet to be put in place, and I guess we're not too sure how long they may take, but certainly there's still a fair bit of work ahead of us.
Also, a win for Oakbridge today. It's been granted approval to continue mining the Bulga open cut mine, ensuring the jobs of 400 workers at the site. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
Ivan Cleary was a part of a winning Auckland Warriors team last Sunday, but he won't remember much of the game after being knocked out badly twice. That incident, in my mind, sparks an interesting call for the league to implement an across-the-board rule on players being knocked out and returning to the field. Research shows that once you've been knocked out, the chance of being knocked out again is greatly increased. There are 3 grades of concussion, from grade 1, which is just being stunned or dazed, right up to grade 3, which is loss of consciousness for an extended period. Ivan Cleary seemed to receive a grade 2 concussion in the first incident, then after being allowed to return to the field was knocked out badly again, suffering a grade 2 or even a grade 3 concussion. The fact that he's listed in the Auckland Warriors side for this week is concerning, to say the least. The decision to go back onto the field or play the next week must be taken out of the players' hands. If they receive a grade 2 concussion, it should be a mandatory week off to recover and be tested. Certainly not let back onto the field to play again in the same game. Now on to round 2, and tonight the Parramatta Eels will take on the Brisbane Broncos. Both first round losers. I think the Broncos will perform better than their last away game. Brisbane to win that one. Saturday night, the big game between the Newcastle Knights and the Melbourne Storm. Albert comes into the Knights side and Dave Fairley moves from the bench into the front row position. Again, none of these teams won last week and they're desperate to do so. The Knights will be too strong on their home ground. The Sharks v the Sydney Roosters. The Sharks have got to be favourite and will win this game. Also on Saturday, St George Illawarra play the North Queensland Cowboys at Wynn Stadium, where the Dragons are near impossible to beat and will win well. Sunday, Canterbury Bulldogs face the Penrith Panthers at Stadium Australia. I've tipped Canterbury to improve from last week's hit-out and to come out on top on this encounter. The Canberra Raiders v the Northern Eagles. It's the Northern Eagles' first away game and I think the Raiders will dominate with their home ground support. And finally on Monday, West Tigers will encounter the Auckland Warriors at Campbelltown Stadium. I think it'll be a test for the Warriors to crack a win away from home. West Tigers to win. I'm Paul Harrigan for NBN News.
It's arrived, great mate. Finally, they haven't laid eyes on each other, and Lisa's hiding behind something, and Scott...
Lisa and Scott had never set eyes on each other until they met in the radio station studio this morning.
My adrenaline was absolutely flat out before I walked in the room, and yeah, once I seen Lisa it was alright.
I was absolutely terrified, just totally terrified. Yeah, really worried, really nervous, and couldn't stop saying, oh my God, I'm going to throw up.
The pair was chosen to take part in the Valentine's Day Challenge and after being officially handcuffed together will now be literally inseparable all weekend, let out of the cuffs for only 5-minute toilet breaks every 2 hours. Among their planned and chaperoned activities, romantic dinners, disco dancing and 10-pin bowling.
Oh, I don't know, I can see me flying up the alleyway and Scott coming behind me.
Scott and Lisa will also share a bed when the cuffs will be removed from the wrists and attached to their ankles. Both say they are undaunted at the thought of being so close to a complete stranger and are already embracing the concept of togetherness. If they can stand to be locked together all weekend, the new couple will win cash and a romantic weekend away, this time without the cuffs. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
It's been a week to forget for the Melbourne Storm just yesterday, burying the football manager Michael Moore, who died in tragic circumstances in New Zealand last weekend. It's sure to spark the Storm into a passionate display tomorrow night. The Knights have plenty to play for as well, in front of their home crowd for the first time this season and looking for their first win.
Both sides are coming off a loss, so I'm very keen to win their first match, and I think it'll be a fantastic match.
Darren Albert is back from his injury-plagued pre-season for his first game of the regular season.
Yeah, foot's 100% now. I'm stepping well on it, running well, straight lines and that, so I'm looking forward to this weekend's game.
The team trained last night at the same time scheduled for tomorrow night's match to acclimatise for the game, with the only real trouble being shadow cast across the ground from the grandstand. The other point of interest, Andrew Johns, who looked to be in good touch despite ongoing groin problems. While Marathon Stadium looks a bit like the team, not quite the way the coach would like it, but sure, it'll do the job.
It looked a bit like a patchwork quilt there for a while, but that's the only colour, so you don't notice that when you're running around on it.
NBN will have the match live tomorrow night, straight after the news.
After several failed attempts by the furniture division of the CFMEU to arrange a meeting with the owner of the Bennetts Green factory, union organisers turned up today in person. The union says employees at the factory have raised concerns about pay and superannuation issues.
It is a major concern, and the union's endeavouring to investigate complaints as we find them, and this is all we're here today for.
Owner Willem Vandervelde agreed to show the union representatives through the factory, giving them access to wages and time records. The owner has now agreed to work with the union to iron out the problems.
I'm more than happy to sort it out with them. Yeah, and I think they're more than surprised what came out of it.
The union says it's not interested in prosecution, just equity for its workers.
We're not after any legal ramifications from this. All we're after is the employees' benefits and make sure they are protected.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.